Welcome to the Play-by-Play with Patrick and Brandon, your home for updates and insights into the sports world.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Play-by-Play. And, I think it's safe to say this one's going to be pretty big. We're just coming up on the MLB trade deadline, or excuse me, the MLB trade deadline just passed right as we're recording this episode on a Tuesday night, and it was very explosive. On top of that, we also have some Summerslam to talk about, and we have plenty of questions from viewers to keep us going. How are you doing today, Brandon?
Doing good. Um, UFC was bad last weekend, or I'm not gonna say bad, maybe mid is the better descriptor. But as we are recording this episode right now, the Red Sox are putting belt on the White Sox, which brings me
Let's go.
untold levels of joy. So overall, feeling pretty good about the sports world right now.
Yeah, it was a shockingly big week considering we don't have a lot going on. Like only one of the major four sports is on, but I feel like, between how crazy the MLB has been and just like everything else, it was still a really fun week in the sporting world. We have a lot to talk about. I'm in Wisconsin right now, enjoying a little vacation. So I'm out of Massachusetts for a while, hoping to have some fun here. But yeah, still had to get the podcast going. Can't take a week off after we took a whole year off. I feel like that's not quite fair. So here we are.
Nope, gotta stick with it. Gotta stick with it.
All right, so you want to get straight into it?
Yeah, so kicking it off, MLB trade deadline just passed, and a lot more moves than I was anticipating,
Oh
both
boy.
in the MLB as a whole and for my beloved Red Sox. Starting it off with the Sox, got All-Star catcher Adley Rutschman from the Baltimore Orioles. Super psyched, very talented player. Just brutal that we lost Curtis Mead so early into his time as a Red Sox player, but obviously big move for the Sox. Another good bat, another consistent hitter, um, talented catcher. I was happy about that. What we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, I feel like, was the Tarek Skubal situation. I had no idea where he was going to end up. Um, I thought he was going to maybe re-sign with the Tigers, but like most big name free agents in baseball right now, I should have anticipated that there was a good chance he would end up a Los Angeles Dodger. And lo and behold, that's where he is. The Dodgers managed to sign Skubal, which I don't have to ask Pat about his opinions on that, but has a lot of people talking about not just whether the move was good for the Tigers or the Dodgers, but what this is going to mean for baseball. Um, Looking like potentially a lockout heading into next year. A lot of uncertainty around the MLB, but the Dodgers get another all-star caliber pitcher to add to their ridiculously stacked rosters. So, I mean, damn, damn.
Yeah, I feel like you hit the big notes so far, so I guess we can start there. The Dodgers did end up getting the Skubal deal done, which I know we talked about in weeks past. Skubal was the number one prospect we were monitoring here on the show, and the Dodgers deal seemed dead in the water. Last week it was reported that the Dodgers proposed a deal and the Tigers turned it down. They didn't like what was being offered, but now I don't know if something changed or if they sweetened the pot, but the Dodgers got Skubal. They gave up quite a bit, a lot of prospects, but frankly, that's not something that matters for the Dodgers. The draft has never been huge for them. Farm talent's never been big for them. All they really do is just poach superstars by paying them an absolute crap load of money. So there's more to talk about there. I'd like to talk more about the state of the MLB once we go through some of these trades. I picked out quite a few trades that I thought were pretty big. You already talked about Adley Rutschman, which is huge. Superstar catcher, all-star catcher coming to the Red Sox. This is coming off their trade for Curtis Mead, who is injured, but he should be back come playoff time. We should have a full-strength Red Sox going into the playoffs. God forbid something else happen. The Sox are looking prime for a run in the American League. And I think it's funny. I have very consistently talked about how weak the American League has been this year.
Not
And a
anymore.
lot of a lot of deals were done to really bolster an American League that has been bad but very competitive. I think it's a lot stronger coming off the trade deadline than it was. I think, pretty much every single good team got a lot stronger. Um, so aside from the Sox and the Dodgers, the Pirates picked up Kirby Yates, Lake Bakar, and Luke Weaver, who are all decent pitchers. And this is a really good move to shore up their pitching staff alongside Paul Skeens, who's been having a down year. He's still been good, but it's just like not what you expect out of a superstar like Skeens. He has a very young career, but he's been very electric since he first came out. The Pirates are only 3.5 games out of the playoffs, so hopefully a little pitching help for them, maybe a little more rest for Skeens can get them back into the race. Weaver has barely played this year, so three solid pitchers, but he's a little bit untested. But in every appearance he's had, he's been very solid. Following that, the Nationals offloaded Foster Griffin. I think this is funny because I believe it was last week we talked about the Nationals as our team of the week. We were kind of curious as to whether, they were looking to kind of fall out of the fray or if they were looking to make a playoff push because they weren't that far outside of the wild card picture. They were, but they weren't that far out. It could have been reasonable after the other trades they made for them to really put the gas on. But they offloaded Foster Griffin. They traded it for three pitchers and Will Dion, Josh Hartle, and Kennelis Vergez. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, as well as outfielder Nick Mitchell. Um, that wasn't the only offloading they did. I saw that and I'm like, maybe they really wanted to shore up their pitching, which is kind of weird, giving up Foster Griffin. But they also traded Luis Garcia Jr. to the Yankees, who's one of their best bats, which I don't like, obviously, because it makes the Yankees better. And I don't like seeing the Yankees be good. That's just the nature of being in Boston. He is one of the best bats the Nationals had. Yankees clearly trying to fix their hitting problem to keep competing with the Rays and Red Sox. It's a crazy race in the American League. The Jays are also strong. Um, yeah, so the Nationals kind of made their decision. It was very unclear. I wasn't sure what they were going to do. Maybe some people that are more apt to baseball did, but I thought it could be very 50-50, and they decided that, you know what, maybe next year. And I don't know if you think any different, but with how many prospects they picked up, they could be strong in the coming years. It's just going to take some development time.
Yeah, I think they made a sort of decision that I think we've seen the Red Sox do a lot in previous years, which is to be sellers at the deadline. If you're looking at the standings right now, I think they've got 4 or 5 teams in front of them to even get in the wild card conversation. Realistically, trying to make a couple of good moves at this point in the season, I don't think is going to bring you any long-term success or bring the Nationals any long-term success. So I think they sort of made the decision that we're going to prioritize our long-term future over keeping the team somewhat competitive in the wild card race. Because realistically, as of right now, Phillies have the last wild card spot in the National League, 60 wins, 53 losses. Nationals are sitting 5.5 games out of that, and they'd have to jump over the Cardinals, Pirates, Marlins, and Padres to even get there. Which, with their roster, they'd have to go on a hell of a run. Which I feel like if you're the Nationals management, you get the feeling that that's more than likely not going to happen. So I think it's probably the smart and more conservative long-term move for the franchise. But losing for Foster Griffin is tough. That guy was putting on absolute clinic every time he took the mound, so they'll definitely miss him.
Yeah, he was electric for them. Foster Griffin is now on the Guardians, improving upon what was already a top 10 pitching staff in baseball, keeping them alive in the wild card race. I do think you hit it on the head with the Nationals. A couple weeks ago when we talked about them, they have been still kind of hanging in there, but they have been sliding as of late. So it's kind of a decision you have to make. The Guardians are going to be a lot better. I mean, I think any team that picks up Foster Griffin is going to be really strong. He is one of the better pitchers in baseball. Following that, the Rays landed fastball Freddie Peralta. He bolsters an already stacked pitching staff. The Rays are firmly atop the American League right now, atop a very competitive American League East, looking to hang on to that spot with the Red Sox, the Jays, and the Yankees all making moves. The Brewers shore up another elite pitching squad with Dustin May, Jojo Romero, and Antonio Senzatela. So that's depth all around. They picked up a starter, they picked up a closer. And yeah, I mean, their pitching staff's already great. This gives me another chance to talk about the Miz. 1.6 ERA, highest ERA in baseball by a freaking mile. They're going to be fun. I mean, they've already been fun. They need to be strong after the moves the Dodgers made, because of course, anybody in that
Can they
National
save
League,
us?
yeah.
Can they save the National League from the Dodgers? Or are they just going to roll over everyone win the World Series, and then we're gonna get no baseball next year.
Yeah. Following that, the White Sox land Kevin Gossman from the Blue Jays. Gossman's been having a very down year. His ERA is around 4.5. I mean, he's been a Cy Young contender in the past. He has been a great pitcher. He's getting a little old, maybe past his prime now, but there's a chance a change of scenery could help him out on the White Sox. In turn, the Blue Jays picked up Liam Hicks from the Marlins, who's been a great bat this year. He has some incredible plate discipline. And also, they picked up pitcher Jose Soriano, who at this point in time I would say is an improvement upon Gaussman. He's had a better all-around season. So very sneaky from the Jays, improving their pitching while giving up a pitcher and then also getting an incredible bat is making that American League East look really competitive. We talked about the Red Sox already, picking up Adley Rutschman, which is huge. I mean, catcher is one of the most important positions, excuse me. Jeez, I can't speak today, one of the most important positions in baseball, and he's an incredible one. His bat's not insane, but if you're a really good catcher, you kind of make up for that. Curtis Mead, we just traded for, but he's injured right now. He should be back in time for the playoffs, though. So
And that was a
assuming,
brutal blunder from the Red Sox training staff, initially diagnosing him with no fractures in his wrist, and then reassessing and saying, "Oh wait, he does have a fracture in his wrist. He's going to miss significant time." Not the first time the Red Sox have misdiagnosed a key player, so definitely a concerning trend in the Red Sox medical staff. But yeah, Rushman, excellent catcher. I think he's around 250 at bat for his career, so it's not gonna, eyes aren't popping off the sheet looking at this. But that then again, 250 is solid, consistent enough. He's been consistent in his career. Adding that bat will definitely help the Sox. And right now, don't get your hopes up, but 2 games behind the Yankees. And
yep,
obviously, the Yankees made some moves at the deadline to show up their roster too, but it would not be a stretch to say the Red Sox are the hottest team in baseball. They are whooping behind on the White Sox right now. Jaron Duran just hit a home run, I think, in back-to-back games, and he's had probably one of his worst seasons at the plate in his career. Uh, if he gets hot, stays hot, this roster comes together, and they keep the momentum rolling. I'm not I'm not saying we're going to the World Series. We're getting hot at the right time. I don't think
yeah,
there's not a single team in the American League we can't beat in a series. We just beat the Dodgers in a series. Like, come on. Beantown, stand up. I'm hyped.
which granted, that was the Dodgers without Skubal. So, we'll see what happens come again if we end up running into them again. Yeah, Rutschman's a great pickup. Like you said, not the greatest bat in the world, but with how hot the rest of the bats on the team have been, you see a guy like Durbin heating up, Duran hopefully heating back up. It's not that much of a problem. Um, we do have a couple questions, a couple viewer questions about the Red Sox. I think I'd like to answer those now. I know last week we started implementing some viewer questions throughout the episode instead of just at the end, and I kind of liked how that was for the flow. So from James in Bellingham, did the Red Sox make the right decisions at the deadline? Two-parter, did they overpay by clearing out their farm system, or is that the cost of doing business? Personally, I think they did make the right decisions. It's going to be hard to tell in the long run. Obviously we need to see some success, but I just like the fact that the Sox are doing anything. The fact that we're not selling at a deadline makes them impressive for once. I actually feel excited about the potential postseason chances for a Red Sox team. And did they overpay by clearing out the farm system? No, because you can replace the farm system, truth be told. There will always be prospects. There are a ton of great baseball players, coming up through college, coming up through the minors. That's something that you can replace. It's easier to replace than like tried and true talent, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like, seeing the Red Sox make a move to be more competitive in the back half of the season was a joy, absolute treat as a Sox fan. And then obviously cleaning out the farm system is tough. I know at one point in time, a lot of Boston fans had hope for Marcelo Mayer as being a future, contributing piece to the team. Obviously, when you have a prospect, you don't know what their ceiling or floor or what they're going to eventually pan out to be. But he was seen as a guy who was going to be a piece, and obviously had a really rough year. Was hitting around 220 in the games he appeared for the Red Sox. Spent a lot of time rehabbing his injury down in Florida, I believe. A lot of talk sort of in the locker room, within the franchise that didn't have the right mentality. wasn't showing the sort of earnestness with coming back from that injury that people were expecting from him as a future potential face of the franchise. Losing him, I know there'll be some fans who are upset that we shipped him off. Not the first time we've shipped off underperforming players. Did he end up on the Giants?
I believe so.
He can join fellow underperforming Red Sox Rafael Devers on that team. Obviously, wish the best for him. Want to see him succeed in San Francisco. I think the Red Sox were, in terms of, obviously not sure about their whole farm system, but as far as my ear was concerned, I think both sides were looking for a fresh start.
Yeah, it's funny because we actually had a viewer question about that. I think you just gave it a great answer, so I'll go over it briefly. From Andrew in Bellingham, how do we feel about Marcelo Mayer being shipped off? And then in parentheses, thank goodness. So somebody's not a fan,
Mm,
I guess. Um,
yeah, I guess so.
yeah, he's been struggling all year. He's hurt right now. It's just like not what the Sox need to stay hot, especially when we just got Curtis Mead and he's also going to be out for so long. You need
Yeah.
guys playing. You need consistency, especially heading into a postseason. And for the first time in a long time, the Sox look like they're going to make some noise. So he just kind of didn't fit the picture. That, I believe, is all the trades I wanted to talk about. Those were the biggest ones of note. If anybody in the audience thinks I missed something and you want us to talk about it next week, feel free to drop a question in the viewer question submission form, which is attached to our link tree on our Instagram and our YouTube all over the place. But following that, the biggest winner from the MLB trade deadline, I would say to the American League East with the Sox, Rays, Yankees, and Jays all looking pretty dang strong right now. I mean, the Orioles basically accepted defeat and kind of shipped off everything at the deadline, but the rest of the division's looking strong. I would say the American League East if the Dodgers didn't exist. I mean, it's always going to be the Dodgers. It's going to be the
I,
Dodgers until the end of time, until
I feel
something
like a lot of
changes.
baseball fans wish that the Dodgers didn't exist or didn't have the payroll that they did. Uh, that's probably, I would say, the second most depressing thing that I heard about the MLB offseason. When I saw the Dodgers sign Scooble, I'm like, well, it was nice watching baseball this year. Probably not going to see it next year. I've heard talks of a lockout. That's brutal. But I have to say, the most depressing thing I heard about the MLB trade deadline was when Adley Rutschman got traded. He was on the way to watch the new Spider-Man movie with his teammates, receives the trade notification, and then doesn't watch the movie.
Brutal.
Couldn't even get one last hangout with the boys in Baltimore before heading over to Beantown, which, I mean, we're glad to have him, but I can't even imagine. You're getting excited to see Peter Parker stunt on the villains of New York, and you find out you're traded. Um,
Yeah, that hurts.
depressing, depressing. But yeah, it's hard to see the Dodgers not winning the World Series at this point. I mean, their roster just reads as like an all-star team in of itself. Um, it's going to be one of those situations where come September and October, there's going to be Dodgers fans rooting for the Dodgers, which I say Dodgers fans in parentheses because I feel like half of their fans like became fans 3 years ago and probably don't watch that much baseball. And then you're going to have the rest of the wider baseball audience rooting for whoever is playing the Dodgers. You're going to
Yeah,
see that situation because you get a roster that loaded that is so artificially created. And what I mean artificially, it's not like their farm system has been electric. It's not like they're, drafting guys and their homegrown talent. They just buy people. And when you do that, you tick a lot of people off. You can't play any underdog card or hometown hero card. You are just a team of mercenaries with the highest payroll in the league. And I mean, shoot, I might root for the Brewers. Gomez, Gomez. That'll do it for me on the MLB talk. I mean, dang.
Yeah, I was trying to think, like, after I did all my research on the MLB trade deadline, I was trying to decide who the biggest winners and the biggest losers were. And the biggest winners are the Dodgers fans, the five real people that actually like the Dodgers, and then like all the Hollywood stars that will pay $1,000 for a ticket just to post the fact that they're at a Dodgers game on Instagram.
Crazy.
Uh, the other biggest winner, the team that potentially puts the Dodgers down. Can anyone do it? I don't know. but it would be electric. They would become America's darlings immediately. I know most of America was rooting for the Blue Jays in the World Series last year, and they're not even American. Uh, it would be cool to see the Brewers finally get it done. That's been a story for them for a long time. Will they ever have enough to beat the Dodgers, excuse me, especially since they're such different teams. The Brewers have the power of friendship and the Dodgers have, a bunch of mercenaries. They have the friggin' Avengers. The Sox or Rays can maybe give them a fight in a World Series scenario. Maybe the Jays again, maybe the Yankees, but I don't know. Maybe the Braves could do something. The biggest losers, though, you definitely talked about it already. The MLB, baseball fans, all of America. We do have one more
Just
question
brutal.
that you already talked about a little bit from Drip Drew in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. How likely do you guys believe an MLB lockout will happen next season? A lot of the MLB is really upset about, how star-studded the Dodgers have been. From my understanding of the situation, a lot of teams want to talk about like salary implications, free agency signings, because the Dodgers have really just been, throwing around so much money with no salary cap, they can't be stopped. It's not about roster construction. It's not about team chemistry. It's not about, the right guys, any sort of statistics. It's just about putting superstars together. And I think especially if they win, we probably won't see baseball next year. I believe the MLB is going to try really hard to come to amicable terms, especially with the surge in popularity baseball has been seeing. It's something that hasn't been super popular throughout, I'd say, the 2000s, but it's definitely been coming back. And I think it would be very bad for business if they didn't start a season in 2027. Maybe the drama helps it out. I don't know. But right now, especially if the Dodgers win, I would say we don't see baseball at the start of 2027.
More likely than not. Hate to agree, but that's the way it's all signs are pointing towards that. Obviously, I think a lot of it will hinge on how this season plays out, but more likely than not, going to be some form of lockout, which that screws over everyone. That
Yeah.
screws over fans. It
Yep.
screws over the MLB. It screws over the teams and the players. It's rough, but enough about baseball. Moving on to Pat's forte. WWE held their two-night Summerslam event last weekend. A lot of big names on those cards for both nights, and I think overall a little underwhelming. Some questionable decisions, some very hype moments, some fun spots. I know my boy Solo Sokoa looked pretty good out there, but yeah, you want to get into it?
Yeah, very up and down. I think night one overall was not the best. A lot of short matches, and the one really long match was just not great. But night two was pretty fun. I liked a lot of it. There are, of course, still things I had problems with. I think that's just the nature of the WWE. But I think it'd be fun to look at some of the matches. We obviously made our predictions last week, see how much we got wrong, and just maybe a quick little review. So Liv Morgan retained the Women's World Championship against Io Sky. Frankly, after Io put on straight belt for 10 minutes, the match was only 12, which is kind of ridiculous. It was a great match for what it was, even though it was short. Io Sky fought the whole Judgment Day. It just kind of proves how incredible of a worker she is. Liv Morgan, obviously a great worker too, but it does kind of cement in my mind that Io Sky is maybe the best in-ring wrestler in the world. I feel very comfortable saying that. Liv Morgan's main problem has been a lack of matches, and she just put on a great one with Io Sky. And I believe last night on Monday Night Raw, Becky Lynch and Stephanie Vaquer both returned. So hopefully they'll help breathe some life into this Liv Morgan reign if it's going to be longer. Personally, I did say I thought it was going to end at SummerSlam. I thought it was time for something fresh, but we might be getting something fresh anyways.
Yeah,
Following,
I think good take. Io Sky did look fantastic. Absolutely ridiculously, technical. Not what we thought was going to happen. I'm
no,
pretty sure our prediction last week was that Io Sky was going to, take the belt. But yeah, like you said, hopefully breathe some new life back into that sort of, storyline. Um, that
yeah,
stupid Judgment Day, man.
yep.
They always just show up and just ruin whatever is there. I, oh,
I think
what a faction.
Yeah, truthfully, I think Liv Morgan not having feuds has really made that faction stale. I know Raquel Rodriguez did just win the Intercontinental title a couple weeks ago, but that really doesn't move me at this point in time. As a faction, they're just not really doing anything. Um, excuse me. I do think the match was great. I have a little more hope for Liv Morgan and the Judgment Day both after that match. Io Sky put on a clinic. She was flying high. She countered an Oblivion with a handstand, which was insane. But we'll see. I am more hopeful coming out of SummerSlam for that women's division than I was going in, following what happened. I think I'm a little more okay with Liv Morgan having that belt. Following that, LA Knight, Royce Keys, and your boy Solo Dolo Sikoa defeat the
Yeah,
Usos and Jacob Fatu. LA Knight is lined up to be the next contender for the World Heavyweight Championship.
LA Knight, baby. Yeah, I was hype. I saw that match. I saw my boy Solo Sikoa take literally snatch Jey Uso's chain and start doing his yeet celebration. Whole crowd had the motion, by the way. Just beautiful. That's probably my favorite moment from both nights. Made me overjoyed to see Jey Uso get smacked around and Solo Sikoa get the W. And I think what most surprises me or maybe worries me is the result of LA Knight lining up to be a contender for, the World Heavyweight Championship. Because I don't know if you saw this, Triple H made some interesting comments about why
Yeah.
different guys don't hold the belt. If anyone didn't see this or doesn't know about it, Triple H is currently the creative head behind the WWE. Obviously, he has to deal with the TKO side of things, but more or less, he is somewhat responsible for the directions that storylines are, going in. And he came out and said that, if you want to win a, big title in WWE, you have to be more over than the guys who have it. Talking about like a Roman Reigns, a Cody Rhodes. I don't know. There are a few wrestlers in recent memory that have been more over with the crowd than like LA Knight in 2023. If
Yeah.
you saw any of his entrances, like when he cut off Roman Reigns' entrance, his music kicks in and the whole crowd is going LA Knight. Like, how can you be more over than that? He's cutting off Roman Reigns, and the crowd just does not give a crap. They're like, yeah, LA Knight's here. That's the boy. So hopefully can see him maybe hold a belt for a bit, but I wouldn't think so.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that that's what we have to talk about following this match. I believe, Triple H's official statement was in response to a statement made by Damian Priest talking about, how the same people stay in those positions for a long time, referring to Roman Reigns, referring to Cody Rhodes, referring to Seth Rollins. And Triple H basically responded by, to be a top guy, you have to have top guy reactions. And I know a lot of people have been critical of Triple H's term as like the chief content officer of the WWE or whatever they call him. But what a stupid thing to say.
Yeah, I
What?
no way to sugarcoat it.
Yeah, I mean, one, like you should be behind all your wrestlers. Like you're kind of putting down Damian Priest with that statement, kind of, downplaying his concerns. Because the truth of the matter is, I'm not the biggest Damian Priest fan, but he's a workhorse. So telling one of those guys, yeah, you're not over like Roman Reigns is over. And that truthfully is silly because obviously wrestlers have to connect with the audience. Certain wrestlers have become almost undeniable by themselves. LA Knight spent time as the manager of the Maximum Male Models. And he made himself so undeniable that he turned into LA Knight, became an actual megastar. So obviously you do have to connect with the crowd, but to a certain extent, how over somebody is with the crowd is on the booker. It's on Triple H. It's on his team that writes the scripts. Because how much exposure you give somebody, how strong you make them look, definitely does have an impact on the crowd at large. Because obviously you have your diehard wrestling fans that are gonna like whoever they want, regardless of whether they're winning or not. But the people that are just like very casually into it are gonna see people winning, see people on TV, and like those people more. So sure, you can say, oh, you're not as over as Roman Reigns. You're not letting someone be as over as Roman Reigns. It's just a horrible statement. It's a bad stigma to surround the event. That's really all I want to say about it, unless you have anything else.
No, that's it. I think there's more stuff to talk about for both night one and night two. So moving on, I know you were excited for this one. Gunther took on Nick Aldis, who is moving up from his more manager role to get back in the ring. Obviously, he's been very vocal about wanting to get back in the ring. Good match, actually good match. And as someone who's not the biggest Gunther fan, or supporter. Good work from both guys. Nick Aldis looked really solid in his first in-ring appearance in a while. Yeah, so surprising that was probably one of the better matches on this night one.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I mean, what a moment for Nick Aldis. He walked out to Oasis. They let him walk out in like the same gear he used to wrestle in like NWA, which, I didn't see, but I've seen pictures. So I'm sure that's got to be great for him, getting to keep the same character, the same mystique. And I mean, just the emotion on his face, like when he was getting on the ropes, like it was great. And let me tell you, one, the guy looks better than almost every, like physique wise, he looks better than almost every wrestler on that men's roster, which is just
Crazy to
insane.
say that.
And he can still go. I would love to see him in the ring again, even if it's just a one-time thing. I think it was really fun. I was very happy with the result. Obviously, Gunther was going to win, but again, Nick Aldis looked great. It was really fun. Following that, Fatal Influence did defeat the Bella Twins and Paige. We were correct about that one. What we didn't predict was the Bellas turned heel and attacked Paige after the match, which I didn't expect. And it is looking like it's going to be a one-on-one feud between Nikki Bella and Brie Bella. Excuse me, between Nikki Bella and Paige, because Brie Bella broke her scapula in the match. She got like shoved into the quote unquote steel steps, and her scapula broke. She finished wrestling the
Jeez,
match, so tough as nails. Good for
elite
her.
toughness. Let's go.
Fatal Influence looked really good. They were really fun as always. It's good that they're getting that push. Definitely the right decision. And this is where things go kind of wrong, in my opinion.
Oh boy.
CM Punk retained the undisputed WWE Championship against Cody Rhodes after Randy Orton returned and RKO'd Cody. And, I don't have a problem with the result. I don't really care who won that match, to be honest. I think Mr. Randall Keith Orton coming back was very exciting. What I didn't like was just how messy the match was. Like, you had CM Punk trying to moonsault and just missing it. A lot of stuff was just like really sloppy. It seemed very poorly put together, which frustrates me because every other match on this card was like 10, 15 minutes, and this one was 30. You're telling me this match, which was not very good, couldn't have been, I don't know, 18 minutes, and you give that extra time to the other matches, let them breathe a little more, especially the fun ones?
Yeah, it was a rough look. Uh, CM Punk, obviously he's been more of a on the mic guy than an in the ring guy. I'm not to say that he was, bad earlier in his career, but at this point did not look that sharp. Cody Rhodes, who's usually pretty solid in the ring, hit probably the slowest crossroads I've ever seen in my life. Um, Uncharacteristically, off for Cody. I think CM Punk gets a lot of crap for his in-ring work, and honestly, after night one of SummerSlam, it's kind of warranted.
Yep.
Uh, is it crazy to say that Nick Aldis looked better than CM Punk in the ring?
No.
No, it's not crazy to say that. And Nick Aldis, mind you, before this was a manager role, which crazy. And I would agree on the, fine with the results. Randy Orton coming back is cool. I do, you know, I feel like in a lot of these big title matches, they never have someone just win clean. So there's going to be interference, but at some point, it's just like, I don't know. I would like to just see the two guys go at it. I don't know who are they planning to have fight CM Punk next?
Well,
He's
we
still
have
got the
his
belt.
next contender, which we will get
Ew.
to in a little bit.
All
But
right.
we did have one more match, which ended up main eventing night one over CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. Definitely the right choice, might I say. Oba Femi defeated Brock Lesnar inside Hell in a Cell in a really crazy match. I thought it was really good. It wasn't super long, but no Brock Lesnar match ever is. For what it was incredibly fun. After the match ended, Brock returned to the ring to put over Oba Femi, calling him the future, this and that, which really is the case. Oba Femi is incredible. And I believe following that, Brock Lesnar confirmed his retirement.
Crazy. The Beast incarnate. Just what a career for him. An absolute class to put Oba over in his last match. Obviously, that's sort of the unspoken rule in the business is to put guys over on your way out. Then again, we have seen guys cough cough Hollywood Hogan say that doesn't work for me, brother. So to see Brock do that, give Oba a push is just really good to see. Brock Lesnar, obviously one of the most decorated and just overall famous combat sport athletes in the world. Uh, Former national champion wrestler in college, played in the NFL, was a UFC heavyweight champion, and now is retiring from the WWE. What a career for that guy, man!
Incredible
Absolute
athlete.
specimen.
Yeah. Yep. Um, it definitely breaks the stigma too. I do think it's a very notorious fact that at some point or another, Brock Lesnar has beaten every single black champion in the history of the WWE. Some
Crazy.
racist remarks going around surrounding that, which I don't know if I blame Brock. I'd more so blame whoever was booking at the time.
Yeah.
But so for him to kind of, turn around and maybe help fix that just a little bit was very nice to see. Obafemi is obviously incredible. He can talk, he can wrestle, he's got the look. But that's really all I got on that one.
Night two.
Following this, you asked who's up next for CM Punk, and it turns out it's a returning Kevin Owens.
Well, going into this, I wouldn't have called it. I like Kevin Owens. I think he's a badass. He's fun to watch. Um, wouldn't have called it. Would not have
Yeah.
called it at all.
Yep. So Kevin Owens and Gunther were added to the number one contender match between Sammy Waller. Congratulations to Kevin Owens. I think it's great that he came back after such a disastrous neck injury. It's good to see him wrestling. He's always been a great voice in wrestling. He's an incredible in-ring performer, but I don't like the result. I think every time you have someone come back from a really long time and immediately get the push straight to that top spot, especially in a match like this, I'm not a fan. And the reason I say that is because Kevin Owens has been a top guy for quite a while. He's been a champion. He's been in marquee feuds. He's main evented Royal Rumble. Gunther has had every single opportunity under the sun. Sami Zayn was just WWE undisputed champion. And then we have Finn Balor, who's been a workhorse of the company for years, and they don't really give him anything. So it's kind of frustrating to see Finn Balor finally really get potentially an opportunity and just have it squandered by someone that wasn't even built up going into the match. I am happy that Kevin Owens is back, but that was kind of frustrating to see. And the frustrations continue because in the next match, and what nobody expected, Baron Corbin defeated Trick Williams to become the new United States champion.
Didn't call that. I
No.
I believe we both said Trick Williams was probably going to win that because both of us did not see a Baron Corbin push coming out of nowhere. Well, the WWE creative team had different plans. Uh, Trick, first of all, gotta give a shout out to Trick Williams' U.S. Championship belt. Having the white fur on it is extremely tough. That is a cool looking belt, and I would cop one. That being said, just a weird result. Not nothing we
Yeah.
saw coming.
No, it was crazy. And I have always been a Corbin guy. Corbin's always been interesting to me. I love his finisher. I've loved some of the feuds he's had. But to say it very bluntly, he ain't no Trick Williams. Let's be completely honest. Trick Williams has the whole package. He can wrestle, he can talk, he's got the look. And I really thought they were building up to a Trick Williams Carmelo Hayes feud. And that's kind of dead in the water now, unless one of them gets it back from Corbin, which is potentially the case. But if that's what they want to do, why would they not have had Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes fight at SummerSlam? So we'll see. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I do
Yeah.
like Corbin. But the surprises really kept rolling on night two because in the interim WWE Women's Championship ladder match, Chelsea Green defeated Tiffany Stratton, Jade Cargill, Charlotte Flair, and Lash Legend. What do you think, Brandon?
Uh, Another result I did not expect. I don't even know, was she the sort of mystery entrant when we recorded last week that we didn't know?
That was Lash Legend. Lash Legend
That
was
was
added,
Lash
I
Legend was,
believe, Friday.
yeah, I wouldn't have called this, like we said last week, not a huge fan of interim championships. So now would she be the next, in line contender for who is it that's injured?
So it's Rhea Ripley out injured with the belt. And what I assume happens, Chelsea Green defends until she and Rhea Ripley need to fight for the belt, which I think is silly. The same thing would have happened if Rhea Ripley was hurt and came back anyways, truth be told,
Yeah.
whether I love that or not. But, um, it's a great moment for Chelsea Green. I think she definitely deserves it. There are a lot of people in the wrestling space and in the WWE that have said that, Chelsea Green really isn't a top star. And Frankly, I disagree. I think some of the feuds she's been in have been kind of, they've been crap material wise. They've given her nothing and she's turned it into gold. She's very charismatic. I can almost equate her to The Miz is like the best comparison I have when you look at those all-time wrestlers. She can talk, she can wrestle, she takes cool bumps. She's a very fun character. So good for her. I wish it was more than just an interim championship, to be honest. Side note, I believe she also overcame her long known fear of ladders in this match to win the belt, which was kind of cool. I was expecting Charlotte Flair to win, but I'm definitely not mad at the result. I think Chelsea Green winning is better for the WWE right now than Charlotte Flair. Following that, we had a really fun match. Dominic Mysterio lost to Danhausen in a money on a pole match. And
A
I mean,
what
it was
now?
a, yeah,
A money on the pole match.
yep,
Was that a thing this time last week?
no.
Like, I have never. Well, you know what? If it was gonna be anyone, it would be Dom Mysterio, Dirty Dom. Huh.
Yeah, it was a great time. You were a lot of shenanigans, which is I think what you expect in a Danhausen versus Dominic Mysterio match. Both those
Yeah.
guys are really fun, really funny. Danhausen continues his uh I believe now 17 and 0 winning streak. He ended up hitting like a money spread after the match, which is kind of funny. He was hitting snow angels and all of his newly earned
Nice.
dollars. But that's really all I got on that. Following that, I think the one you and I were most anticipating going in, Chad
Oh yeah.
Gable earns his first ever singles title in his
Bang.
hometown by defeating the Intercontinental Champion Penta. And let me tell
That's
you,
my boy.
talk about earned.
That's my boy right there. Chatty Daddy, stand up. Let's go.
It was a great match. Both those guys can really go. And I mean, it was fun. Chad Gable brought his whole family into the ring after he won. I really hope he gets a long match. WWE does have a notorious stigma about taking those guys that really did earn it, fan favorites and kind of screwing them over. So we'll see what happens. I hope Chad holds it for a long
Give him a
time. I'd like to
push.
see him beat some fun opponents. I believe his next challenger is in fact Dominic Mysterio, which is
Oh,
going to
that's
be
gonna be a
fun.
banger. That's gonna be a
Yep.
banger. That'll be good.
Anyways, what I was saying, the last match of the night was Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, and Roman ended up beating Seth clean for like the first time I've ever seen. As a Seth fan, it is kind of sad because this really seemed like the last chapter in their story. And Seth, in my mind, has always had Roman's number. That's been one of the biggest parts of their story. But the match was electric, and at the end, they paid a very nice tribute to The Shield and John Moxley, who was formerly known as Dean Ambrose. I'm sure all of my Dean Ambrose fans out there love that. I don't know if you have anything else on that.
Uh, you know, not exactly the result I was expecting or looking for, but as someone who got into WWE, rather recently, one of the first like WWE related memes I ever saw was just believe in the Shield and like all the Shield memes and like they were a sick trio back in the day. It was cool to see them pay tribute to it, and I mean Roman Reigns, he's got that aura about him.
He does.
I
He
remember
does.
when he returned at SummerSlam a couple years ago. I was watching with some of my boys in Plymouth. He came back. Everyone's just hitting the acknowledge me, like acknowledge him, acknowledge Reigns. He's a beast. Yeah, good sort of bookend to the Shield storyline.
Yeah, obviously very sad that, John Moxley couldn't be there. I think being a part of a competing company kind of really ruins the chances of that. A lot of
Yeah,
people were hoping for it, but it was never going to happen. I believe the next major premium live event is Money in the Bank in October. So we'll obviously talk about that as it gets closer. If anything more explosive in the WWE world does happen, we'll talk about that as well. But we've done a lot of WWE in the last couple of weeks, so it gives us
we
an
have.
opportunity to talk about some other things. Following that, we had UFC Belgrade. I don't know if you have any updates or interesting tidbits from that.
Yeah, so obviously took place in Belgrade, Serbia. So they stacked the card with Serbian and sort of surrounding countries' talent. Uh, three fights on this card that I was sort of dialed in for that have like implications on rankings and whatnot. We'll start off with Alexander Rakic, the former light heavyweight, top five light heavyweight at one point, moved up to heavyweight and took down Marcin Tybura, who I believe was ranked 13th at heavyweight, with a unanimous decision. I watched the fight. It was not terribly interesting. Oftentimes, when you have a guy moving up a division, especially moving up into heavyweight the way it is right now, you see the term lighter man skill getting thrown around. You assume that the guy who's moving up is going to have the significant skill and speed advantage, which was true. Rakic was much faster, much more technical, looked a lot more crisp with his movements, but wasn't able to find the finish over Tybura, who's been on a skid. I believe he's been going down in the rankings. I believe he was around as high as like six at one point in time, and now he's 13th, 14th in the heavyweight division. So a good result for Rakic, gets the win in his home country, and the crowd. I'll tell you what, the crowd did not care that he won by unanimous decision. They went nuts when he won, just because he was from Serbia. So they obviously had their hometown guys back. In a heavyweight division that is not, loaded with talent right now. Obviously, the rankings are a little bit thin in that division. Um, I don't know what Rakic can do. I don't know what his ceiling is. Do I think he's going to be a champion at heavyweight? No. Between Aspinall, Gane, and guys like Sergey Pavlovich and Alexander Volkov, even Alex Pereira, should he choose to continue fighting at heavyweight, I don't see Rakic beating any of those guys. I don't think he has the wrestling or the size, or at this point, the pop in his legs to really contend with some of those top guys. But you have guys like Sergey Spivak and Walter Walker uh, in the top 10 of the division. I think Rakic gives those guys a good fight. So I think maybe, fringe top 10 guy in the heavyweight division. Moving on from that, Navajo Sterling, light heavyweight prospect out of Australia, defeats Jan Blachowicz by TKO in round one. And let me tell you, that one hurt to watch. Jan Blachowicz has been in a really weird spot recently. Hasn't won a fight in a long time, but not for lack of fighting. He fought. Oh, this was brutal. He's had a couple of fights get canceled due to him getting injured, which obviously you hate to see. Um, and Blachowicz being a former champion in the division is brutal. But his last five fights, he had a draw with Magomed Ankalaev for the vacant belt, which means nobody wins the belt. Then he loses a close decision to Alex Pereira, loses to Carlos Ulberg. Um, I believe he draws with Bogdan Guskov and then gets knocked out. So Blachowicz, at this point, Blachowicz is over 40 years old. His best fighting days are probably behind him. So I think the best move for him is to probably hang it up. For Navajo Sterling, who I believe enters the top 10 of light heavyweight, it's looking like the sky's the limit. The guy's a beast. He's got good cardio. He hits hard, solid fundamentals, trains in a good camp. I believe he's a city kickboxing product. So over there, I believe you've had guys like Alexander Volkanovski and Israel Adesanya. So
Big names.
yes, big names, good camp, solid fighter. I think he'll be looking for a top 10, maybe fringe top five fight next. And then the main event, Uros Medic defeated Daniel Rodriguez in the first round, 30 seconds in. Uh, the big storyline about this fight was Daniel Rodriguez was coming off of a stint in prison. I believe he got caught crossing the U.S. Mexico border with marijuana,
Oh
which is a
boy.
big no-no. So spent some time in prison. I think he was there for about 8 months, and then got out and signed the fight with Medic. Medic has been on a run. I think he was 4-3 in his early run in the company, but I think he's on a 3 or 4 fight winning streak now. So definitely turned it around, shored up his defense. He looked like a beast. The dude hits like a truck. He striking was technical, found the mark really early, just found D-Rod's chin and put him out with ground and pound. So Medic made the very smart move and called out a guy who was above him, but is most certainly on the downward trend. Gets the mic after the fight and calls out Leon Edwards. Uh,
Legend.
for anyone that doesn't know who Leon Edwards is, I imagine the UFC diehards are well aware who Rocky is, but Leon Edwards, former welterweight champ, has probably the most insane late fight knockout in UFC history, bar Max Holloway over Justin Gaethje. Uh, I believe it was UFC 278. Leon Edwards was down 3 rounds to one, entering the fifth. The commentary team was all but ready to say, well, he's going to lose, but he won't get finished. So, it's a moral victory. And then John Anik says that is not the cloth from which he is cut, and Leon Edwards knocked out Kamaru Usman to win the belt. That was a great moment. That was 4 years ago. As of right now, Leon Edwards lost his belt to Bilal Muhammad, got submitted by Sean Brady, um, and then in his most recent fight, got brutally knocked out by Carlos Prates. So 3 fight losing skid, decision, submission, TKO. It's not it's not out of reality to say that Leon Edwards is on a skid and falling out of the rankings. So if you're Medic, you call out Edwards, who I believe is ranked around 8 or 9. It gives you a shot at a top 10 guy who maybe isn't fighting one right now, like one right now. And yeah, that's it. I don't know what the next card is, but the next big pay-per-view, UFC 330, welterweight champion Islam Makhachev is taking on the number 2 contender Ian Machado Gary for the welterweight belt. The rest of the card right now is kind of thin. There have been some fights that have been canceled or pulled out. So I believe the UFC is going to look to try to add some fights to that to sort of boost the rest of the card. But we'll talk more about Gary versus Makhachev as we get closer.
Yeah, definitely interesting. It's kind of cool that they did an event in Serbia. It's always fun to give like those worldwide fans those opportunities and stuff like this. I'm interested to see what happens with Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards, one of my longtime favorites. My UFC knowledge has been very limited, but he's been a guy that's always been exciting in my mind. And of course, he's on his kid, but at the end of the day, he is still Leon Edwards. I think he's still got it in him. I'll be excited for if and when that fight actually happens. But following that, we do have some great viewer questions. We got a lot this week, which is great, always fun. So our first from Mike in Bellingham, people are saying this Sixers team are the best starting five of all time. Which starting five would you give that title to? I'm not surprised we didn't get more LeBron. I'm not surprised that we got more LeBron questions, being that he's LeBron James. So here's what I did, Brandon. Obviously, we know talent-wise, that team's incredible. They have 2 former MVPs, a Finals MVP, an All-Star, All-NBA guy, and the Generator, who is one of the youngest rising stars in basketball. Any one of those guys can drop 30 on it any given night. Talent-wise, I think I agree. But what I did is I took some of my other favorite lineups from the history of basketball, and I'm gonna read them out for you, and then you tell me what you think.
All
So
right, let's hear it.
the first one that came to my mind, probably the first one that comes to anybody's mind, should be the Death Lineup Warriors. Steph
Mm,
Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Andre Iguodala, Draymond Green. They're incredible. 2 of the greatest scorers in the history of basketball, 3 of the greatest shooters in the history of basketball, one of the greatest glue guys of all time in the history of Iguodala and Draymond, who, as of course, is a bit of an enigma, but he's the tough guy for that team. He facilitates a lot, sets some hard screens. Following that, my mind went to the 86-87 Celtics with Dennis
gotta
Johnson,
have it.
Danny Ainge, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish. Robert Parrish and McHale, 2, I believe, incredibly underrated players, and that's because they played in the shadow of Larry Bird. Robert Parrish has one of the longest careers in the history of basketball. Kevin McHale, very impressive post game, and Larry Bird is Larry Bird. Following that, I continued the Celtics thread, and I know a lot of people are probably not going to like this pick, but the old heads will
The
love it.
youngins, the youngins
Yep.
aren't gonna like it.
I went with the 62-63 Celtics. Bob Cousy, very young John Havlicek, so not at the peak of his powers, but he is still John Havlicek, the most underrated player in the history of basketball for my money. Sam Jones, Tommy Heinsohn, and Bill Russell. People will immediately discredit this pick because it was 1960s basketball, but I don't think that's fair. You play the competition you're given. Uh, I don't know that I personally would call them the greatest starting five of all time, but they're most certainly up there.
Deserve a
Following
mention.
that, the 87-88 Lakers with Magic Johnson, Byron Scott, James Worthy, AC Green, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. This Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was 40. You can't look at this lineup and say, wow, it's, 2 of the greatest players of all time. This Kareem was a shadow of himself, 14 points a game. And the team's leading scorers were Byron Scott and James Worthy, who were both averaging right around 20 points a game. My other pick, one that
is a little more personal to me just because like I like them and the style of basketball they play. The 2002-2003 Spurs with Tony Parker, Steven Jackson, Bruce Bowen, Tim Duncan, and David Robinson. Much like Kareem, the Admiral was really a shadow of himself at this point. He retired after they won that season, I believe. But at the end of the day, he's still the Admiral. Tim Duncan is one of the greatest players of all time, and still I find him to somehow be underrated. A lot of people don't really talk about him like they
Crazy,
should.
crazy, but it's true.
Yep. And the rest of the team just had great construction, great defense, great offense, solid spacing for the
Great
time.
coaching
You had a
too.
couple good shooters. That's my list. So my question to you is, did I miss anybody? And do you think any of those lineups are better talent-wise than that Sixers team? Because obviously we haven't seen them play together, so we're just
Yeah.
looking at talent.
Talent wise, it is tough to argue that these teams have more on paper skill than the Philadelphia 76ers roster is right now. Starting with the Warriors' death lineup, in terms of team chemistry and the way they fit together, I have doubts that the Sixers will ever achieve the chemistry that Warriors team had. The fact that KD and Steph managed to complement each other so well and play so well with each other on the court, despite both being guys who want to, shoot the ball and average 27 a game, is impressive. Obviously, Klay Thompson in his prime is an elite 3-and-D player, literal knockdown shooter to the point where it gets ridiculous. 60 points and 11 dribbles, in case you forgot. Iguodala, I believe, was that Max Kellerman who said aliens taking over the universe, death being pointed at the planet. I want Iguodala. He
Yep.
was a very clutch complementary piece. Good player in his prime, around 20 points per game when he was early in his career with the Sixers. And then Draymond Green, he was the muscle, which you need the muscle. It's the Celtics, as much as it pains me to say, the late 2000s, early 2010 Celtics were not as good when they lost their muscle, being Kendrick Perkins. You got to have muscle, and Draymond Green was an absolute dog for them, scrapping down low for rebounds, playing elite defense, having surprisingly good court vision. Um, Ridiculously talented lineup, which, unlike the Sixers, which we haven't seen play, we know they worked well on the court
Yeah,
because they ran the NBA. Moving on, 86 87 Celtics, probably one of the most talked about teams from the 80s. Obviously, I don't think there's anything I could say that hasn't been said about Larry Bird. What he brought on the court was generational. Um, Ironically, has a game that I think would translate pretty well to the modern NBA.
I agree.
Um, Runs the floor, excellent court vision for a forward, excellent rebounding, really good 3-point shooting, especially as he matured in his career. I don't need to remind you about him walking into the locker room at the All Star game and asking everyone who was going to win second in the 3-point contest because he was winning number one. You already touched on it, but Kevin McHale, probably one of the most underrated players in the history of the game. You don't earn a nickname like the torture chamber if you aren't absolutely filthy. And if you watched him go to work in the post, he was ridiculously difficult to guard. And Robert Parrish, nothing short of an Iron Man in his career, ridiculously tough, uh, incredible rebounder, solid post player. And then obviously Dennis Johnson worked great with that team, facilitating, and Danny Ainge, setting the sort of prototype for a scrappy, high motor player that would hound the other team's wings and just be a pain in the rear all game. So legendary lineup. I don't know if they have quite the on paper talent when you look at the Sixers, but legendary lineup that, as we all know, works pretty well. I don't think you could have put the 62-63 Celtics better. People will discredit them because the 60s, you've got the whole new generation of basketball fans saying, oh, we done with the 90s. Oh, basketball sucked back then. These guys had no talent. You know what? Give it a rest. Bill Russell didn't have the option to time travel to 2020 and guard Joel Embiid. He just had to guard Wilt Chamberlain, and they had some pretty good battles, and Bill Russell ended up with a winning 11 rings. So, a legendary lineup. Obviously, the game has evolved since then. Wasn't even a 3-point line, but a talented roster and one that has to be talked about in the history of basketball. 87-88 Lakers. That's a good team. Again, tough to say they have more talent than the Sixers, especially with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar being, you know, sort of just a shell of his former self. And not to say that 40-year-old Kareem couldn't, put absolute belt on 99% of basketball players that have ever walked the earth, but not the guy he was back in Milwaukee or even in the earlier days of the Lakers. And I love that you talked about the Spurs because not only did the Spurs have great talent on paper when it came to their roster, great coaching staff, obviously led by Greg Popovich, one of the best coaches in the history of the game. Um, Gotta love some Tim Duncan highlights. If you want to see someone play some fundamentals and hit the same bank shot like 50 billion times in a row, watch some Tim Duncan film. Um, Really tough to say that any of those rosters are better on paper than the Sixers, but the true test will be, can the Sixers stack up with what these teams did when they played together?
Yeah, it's definitely hard to say. I think your analysis of every team was very good. Really, the only other thing I have to say, I suppose, is in terms of that Lakers team, Byron Scott and James Worthy are both very underrated all time. Two incredible scorers. I think they did a lot of the heavy lifting for that. Magic Johnson is the greatest playmaker of all time case that,
Maybe.
the old heads love to talk about. That's definitely a debate, definitely a discussion I'd be willing to have at some point. But that's really it on that. Following that from Elvis P. in Tupelo, Mississippi.
Whoa, mama. We got an Elvis
What
question.
what two teams are in the
I
Super
knew he
Bowl
was
next year?
alive. I knew he was alive. Elvis is hiding in Graceland somewhere, giving us this question. Um, Two teams in the Super Bowl next year. What do you think about this, Pat?
So my two picks, and granted, this could be very subject to change this early before the NFL season. But I think my immediate choices are the Rams, who shored up an already star-studded team with Myles Garrett, Trent McDuffie, and Jalen Watson. Their defense is going to be elite. Their offense is still going to produce very well. Stafford getting up there in age, but I'm confident that he can still perform. He's been elite the last couple of years of his career. And my other pick is probably going to be a little bit more unexpected, but during my time with the Sports Perspective, I interviewed a Ravens expert, and
Really?
based on some insight I received, some uh, research I've done myself, I am going to go with the Baltimore Ravens. I do feel like they've been cursed the last couple of years. I think they've suffered from a lot of injuries, but they made some nice pickups and a coaching switch. As long as they're healthy, they're going to be strong. Don't sleep on healthy Lamar Jackson. Just don't do it. I know a lot of people just call him a running back. He can still sling the rock. Maybe he can
But
still sling the rock. Very underrated. Obviously, he's been hurt for a while. I think that's doing a lot of the negative damage to his reputation right now. Truthfully, if he is healthy, he's going to be great. I know that's a lot of ifs right there. So maybe my pick does change as we get closer to the season. But for now, I'm rocking Rams Ravens.
all right, so I'll give my picks. NFC, I think you're dead on. The favorite in the preseason is the Rams. Obviously came, I believe, one game short of making the Super Bowl last year. Came up short to the Seahawks, who I believe have lost some key pieces. So it's also hard to go back to back in this league. So I think Rams is definitely the preseason favorite to come out of the NFC. Um, I mean, come on, Miles Garrett getting added to that team is insane. Obviously, there have been rumors swirling that Aaron Donald is considering coming out of retirement. Haven't heard word on that, or even if that's a legit thing beyond just Instagram rumors and hype reels. But league needs to watch out and tell Aaron Donald that his couch is very comfy and could he please stay there. Um, with the AFC, people are gonna call me a homer. People are gonna
You
say I'm
are.
delusional. Um, I'm going with the New England Patriots. And this is not just based on the fact that I own an I Love Drake May t-shirt. I do. That doesn't have everything to do with this. It's a big part of it. Um, I think the Patriots looked at their roster last year and looked at how the playoffs and how the Super Bowl went out, and they shored up a lot of the issues they had. We did not have our wide receivers creating a ton of separation in the Super Bowl. We signed Romeo Dubes as a reliable wide receiver too, and obviously the big offseason signing for us, AJ Brown, who's looked phenomenal in camp so far. There were rumors, mostly from salty Eagles fans, saying that AJ Brown was washed and he couldn't connect with Drake May. And then Drake May was like, you know what, I want to dot him up in the back of the end zone on an over the shoulder catch. Um, Super excited to watch that duo work. In terms of the defense, our defense was absolutely insane in the playoffs. Made Justin Herbert get shell shock from dealing with our D line all game. Picked off CJ Stroud 4 times. And to bolster that, we've signed former Pro Bowl safety Kevin Byard from the Bears, which is a huge signing. We also signed Draymond Jones for the D line, which will be good. Some additional pressure up front. And then the O line. The O line was probably our biggest issue in the Super Bowl. Obviously, Will Campbell was playing on a very injured knee, but after that game, I believe most comments were our O line resembles a piece of Swiss cheese or wet cardboard. We drafted Caleb Lomu. I think he's going to play more of a backup reserve role if someone else does go down. Also signed Elijah Very Tucker, as a talented O lineman. So you're looking to bolster that. Obviously, the Garrett Bradbury's gone, but that means Jared Wilson can move to center, which is a move that the team was eyeing for some time. Besides all the new signings, excellent QB play. What is there to say about Drake May that hasn't been said? Had an absolutely incredible year too. Took a huge step up. Led the league in completion percentage with 72%. I've heard some Drake May naysayers say that isn't impressive. That is a top 5 single season mark in the history of the NFL. He is up there with guys like Drew Brees for that single season statistic. So I don't want to hear it. 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 4,394 yards as a second year player with a new head coach. Uh, I was blown away, exceeded all my expectations for year 2. So excited to see him work in the second year with that system with our coaching staff led by Mike Vrabel, putting the off-season, off the field issues aside. Took a Patriots team that was 4-13 and made them a Super Bowl contender. Obviously, you have a great offensive coordinator with Josh McDaniels. Him in the second year working with Drake May also has a tendency to make first-year wide receivers in his system break out. I think the Patriots are looking at a year where they could go to the Super Bowl again and win it, hopefully. Other teams in the AFC to keep an eye on, I think, are the Ravens. Obviously, you have to keep an eye on the Buffalo Bills. They did sign DJ Moore in the offseason, but they
Nah.
also did release probably the worst uniforms I've ever seen in my life. So the Bills are staying controversial. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes coming off an injury, and that Chiefs roster is just not what it used to be in previous years. Don't know how much Mahomes can carry, but if he can get his health back, obviously you can't discount what he's done in this league. And before we move on from this question, I want to give a little bit of a dark horse to a team that got a lot of scrutiny last year, the Philadelphia Eagles. People seem to forget that this Philadelphia Eagles team has been to 2 Super Bowls in the last 5 years, and they've won one pretty dominantly over a good Chiefs team. Obviously, last year was marred by offensive struggles. Jalen Hurts had a sort of a down year. A lot of that blame was placed on him, maybe unfairly. A lot of it was also placed on Kevin Patullo as offensive coordinator, who is now gone. He has been replaced. Um, Obviously, don't know how good their offense is going to be next year, but without Kevin Patullo, you hope to see them get back to form. They signed Hollywood Brown in the offseason, who I believe is coming off an injury, but he could be a good depth piece for them at wide receiver. And then, you still have Saquon Barkley. You still have a really good defense, Cooper DeJean, um, locking it down. And then Devonta Smith, who has spent the last couple of years being the second option behind A.J. Brown, looks to sort of slide into that wide receiver one role. If they can get that offense moving, they can get Jalen Hurts moving the ball downfield. They're going to be a tough team to beat. Definitely a team to watch in the NFC.
Yeah, I think your entire analysis was pretty strong, except for one thing. I know this probably sounds interesting considering I just picked the Ravens to win the Super Bowl, but if the Bills were going to win it, they would have done it already. They've been very stagnant. I don't have faith in Josh Allen,
I
truthfully.
don't, I don't want
Obviously,
to because I'm a Patriots fan.
he's incredibly talented. They made a lot of decisions in that front office that even Buffalo Bills fans don't like. I really don't see them doing anything. Obviously, they're going to be competitive. Obviously, they're a talented team. But when you talk about making Super Bowl noise, that is not them. Could saying that come back to bite me in the ass down the road? Probably, but I don't think
I mean,
so.
there were interesting decisions. They decided to make a coaching change. Sean McDermott was out as head coach. And instead of looking to sign someone new, they promoted their offensive coordinator. And if you watch the Bills' offense, it was essentially Josh Allen saves us or we drown.
Yep.
If Josh Allen wasn't throwing 90 yards down the field or chucking people and stiff arming them for a first down, the Bills were treading water offensively, making the guy in charge of that offense your head coach. More than questionable decision. I, for one, will be rooting on the Bills' downfall all of next year. Um,
I know Bills
yeah,
fans
that's it. I
don't
got
love Brandon Bean either, so it's really just kind of been doom and despair for them for a little bit. But
those
you
uniforms
know,
didn't help.
in the sake
My
of
God.
time, I think we move on, especially from those horrible jerseys.
Ugh,
From Peter Parker in New York City, would adding
no way.
Spider-Man to any active NBA team improve their finals chances? So here's the thing. I've never seen Spider-Man personally. According to the newspapers I read, he's kind of a menace, kind of a thief, a criminal. Uh, Not a big fan of the Spider-Man guy myself. I've heard Spider-Man is kind of short, but he's definitely got the athleticism, and I bet you'd have a string on the rock. Maybe some prime Celtics IT style of production, maybe a little more explosiveness at the rim. I've heard he's pretty athletic. But the Daily
You
Bugle
would
tells me he's got some
you
attitude
would
problems.
read the Daily Bugle. That
That's
man
what it
is a
tells me.
hero. That man is a hero. He would put the city on his back. I mean, realistically, if he was going to get added to an active NBA team, it would probably be the Knicks. Um, I mean, the Knicks already have a championship roster. I'm sure adding Spider-Man would be a problem considering that dude can jump out of the building. Um,
Allegedly.
you got to stop listening to J. Jonah Jameson, man. He's polluting your mind. Spider-Man's a hero.
It's a reputable paper. I don't know what you want from it.
He films a podcast in a
All
basement.
right, get out of here, bro. Get out of here. You clearly just don't
I
understand media
film my
literacy.
podcast in a room. J. Jonah Jameson is beneath us. We cannot listen to him slandering Spider Goat. That's ridiculous.
I don't know how the Daily Bugle fans are going to feel about what you just said.
Come
There's
at
definitely
me.
a chance that backfires on us, so I'm going to keep it moving, get away from that, distance myself from the situation. Mr. Jameson, if you're watching, your paper and your podcast are both very reputable. I do not associate with this other man I'm talking with right now. But anyways, from Beckett in Wisconsin, this one's a two-parter. One, how could have the Bucks rebuilt without trading Giannis? And two, could KD has he pull over Galactus? To answer
Oh
the first
my.
part, I'm gonna keep it quick. I don't really think the Bucks could have rebuilt without trading Giannis. I think their pieces were just like it was doom and despair. I mean, you have Miles Turner, you have Kyle Kuzma. The team's really only getting older. In order to rebuild, especially when you don't have a ton of super valuable assets, you're either going to have to get some crazy free agency signings, which is not happening because it's Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Great city, but not a very big market or a marquee destination for our rich and famous athletes. Um, and they just weren't hitting it in the draft. Kuzma's not moving anybody. Turner's not moving anybody. I think you had to move on from Giannis and, hope you get lucky in the draft the next couple of years. As far as could KD, has he pull over Galactus? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's not that's you know what, fair. I think you're spot on with the analysis on the Bucks. I mean, no free agents are going to come there. Even when Giannis was still on the roster, I feel like the talk every offseason or even during the season was when is Giannis going to leave? So they weren't really going to sign anyone significant to play alongside Giannis because there was no guarantee he'd be there. And surprise, surprise, he's not there anymore. And I'm not going to elaborate anymore. KD could has he pull over Galactus? Absolutely. Have you seen Kevin Durant play? And if the answer is yes, then you already know the answer. So what do we got next?
That is going to be it for us. Fun
Oh
facts.
wow. So we ended on Hezzy's over Galactus.
Indeed. Great
I,
place
I
to
have
end.
s- I have seen, you know what? I'm gonna shout out to Beckett. I've seen a lot of these questions on the internet. Um Others I've seen could Christian Gonzalez deflect debris from Mount Vesuvius in Pompeii? I believe the answer for that was yes.
Yep,
Um could Jakob Ingebrigtsen outrun a tornado? I've seen that. I believe the answer for
probably.
that was also yes. Um Honestly, keep these coming. These
Good
are great
question.
questions. These are all the questions we got today were great. We love answering the questions on the forum. Like Pat said earlier, it's on the bio in the Instagram. Takes like 5 seconds to fill out. Anything from like an actual serious legit take to Peter Parker dropping in and putting a 40 spot for the Knicks.
Who?
Peter Parker,
Who's Peter Parker? I only know Spider-Man.
the guy on the forum, man.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, unless you have anything else, Brandon, I do believe that's going to do it for us.
There we go. I mean, not gonna another episode in a week. The
Four straight?
consistency,
Four
the cons
straight?
whoa, four straight,
Turn me
four
up.
straight. Look at that. They said we couldn't do it. They said Brandon was gonna fall asleep before it was time to record. They were wrong. We
Indeed, they
up.
were. All right. That's all from us at the play-by-play for this week. Make sure to check out our Instagram, check out our YouTube, check out our link tree. If you want to submit some questions to the forum, please do. We love answering them. And other than that, that's all from us. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the play-by-play with Patrick and Brandon. Make sure to check our Instagram to stay up to date with the show, and make sure to come back next Wednesday for a new episode.